In the history of American slavery, some truths were never meant to be told. The narrative was carefully curated, edited, and polished until it served the myth of white Southern purity. But hidden beneath layers of lies and silence lies a story that challenges everything we've been taught. A story of a taboo so powerful it was erased from history books. This is the truth about white women's sexual abuse of enslaved black men, and why it was deliberately buried. In the antebellum South, slavery was not just an economic system. It was a complete hierarchy of race and power. White men sat at the top, followed by white women, and at the very bottom, enslaved black people. We've been taught to think of white women as powerless under the patriarchal authority of their husbands. But in the lives of enslaved men, white women could wield terrifying power. A white woman's word could mean life or death for an enslaved man. And while history often focuses on white men abusing enslaved women, the reverse, white women abusing enslaved men, was almost never acknowledged. Not because it didn't happen, but because admitting it would shatter the carefully maintained image of white female innocence. On plantations, especially when husbands were away, white women often managed daily operations. They had absolute control over the enslaved workers, men included. An enslaved man could be ordered into her private quarters under the pretense of work, and there he had no right to refuse her demands. Even if an encounter looked consensual on paper, it was never truly consensual. How could it be when refusal could mean a beating, being sold away from family, or even death? The imbalance of power meant any choice was an illusion. Southern society thrived on the myth that white women were the pure, virtuous jewels of the South. To admit that some of them used their position to sexually exploit enslaved black men would destroy that image. Instead, a different story was told, one that painted black men as the predators and white women as the helpless victims. This lie became deadly. If a white woman's sexual contact with a black man was discovered, the man could be accused of rape, even if she had initiated it. The result? Lynching, torture, execution. Her reputation was protected. His life was destroyed. In the 1800s, rape laws were written with one assumption: only women could be victims. Male rape was not legally recognized, and certainly not when the victim was an enslaved black man. If an enslaved man tried to speak up, it wasn't just that nobody believed him. The law itself refused to even imagine his suffering. Historians call it deliberate historical erasure. Slave narratives collected in the 1930s by the WPA contain rare, careful references to white women's advances. But most survivors stayed silent because even decades later, accusing a white woman could still bring danger. Plantation journals, silent, court records, non-existent, Southern memoirs, full of faithful servant tales, never the abuses. The truth was scrubbed away to protect white Southern womanhood as part of the lost cause myth after the Civil War. After slavery, the danger didn't end. In the Jim Crow era, a black man could be lynched simply for being accused of looking at a white woman the wrong way. How then could a man ever say, "She forced herself on me"? Survival demanded silence. Families passed down the truth quietly, in whispers, if at all. Many descendants learned these stories only in adulthood, sometimes piecing them together from scattered memories and careful hints. Many enslaved men worked inside the home as butlers, carriage drivers, gardeners, and personal attendants. This brought them into daily, unsupervised contact with white women. The opportunities for abuse were there, but so was the risk for the man. Refusal was dangerous. Compliance was dangerous. It was a trap with no safe way out. Only in recent decades have historians begun to openly discuss this taboo. Black scholars, feminist historians, and truth-tellers have started challenging the myth of the pure Southern lady. They point out that acknowledging these abuses doesn't erase the oppression white women also faced under patriarchy. But it does make the historical record more honest. By telling these stories, we dismantle the lie that white women were only victims in the slave system. Some were also perpetrators. And that truth matters. Erasing these abuses was not just about protecting reputations. It was about preserving a racial order. If white women could be seen as aggressors and black men as victims, the entire foundation of white supremacy would crack. Today, acknowledging these truths is part of dismantling that foundation. When we face this history, we honor the men whose stories were stolen from them. We also confront the uncomfortable reality that oppression can be complex, with victims and perpetrators across gender lines. This is the history they didn't want you to know. It is not comfortable. It was never meant to be. But the past is not meant to comfort us. It is meant to teach us. For too long, white female sexual abuse of enslaved black men has been a ghost in our history, hidden behind layers of lies and silence. Bringing it into the light is not just about the past. It's about truth, justice, and remembering the voices that were never heard.